thanks for joining us today. I have my friend Sarza here, and she is quite an amazing mom, if you ask me. She has literally picked up her family and moved them to her boat because her son, who is neurodiverse, just functioned better. So, Sarza, do you want to tell us first a little bit about life before the boat and how you decided the boat was the answer? And now, what is life like now?
Yeah, so I'm a mom of 5 boys. So my youngest boy he's neurodiverse. He's on the autistic spectrum and deals with a lot of sensory aspects. So there's a lot of sensory aspects where he can get overstimulated. In our house, there can be like back at home, we made things work. And there were lots of great things we came across that really mitigated and gave him some tools and some functioning, like all different kinds of therapies and different things that really helped to de-escalate him. At home, he can get really agitated really quickly. It's like he's always operating at like a 9 out of 10. There's a scale. He's like always sitting there around this 9 out of 10 scale. And like he's agitated pretty much consistently, like
So he's
anything.
operating in fight or flight.
Yeah, anything can set him off at any moment. And it's like, a loud noise, lots of people, something he doesn't want to do, all kinds of different things that don't go a certain way. Like it would just be our household. Like, again, something that's really important to me is our family and our connection in our family. And it's so important for siblings to be connected. And in our house, that wasn't happening. And it kind of broke my heart because as we'd go through our house, Reed would be pretty upset a lot of the times, be hitting out, be yelling, be upset, to get cooperation would just be, oh my gosh, myself, I felt like I was having, like it would just be really tricky for me as a parent even to function. And again, we came across all kinds of therapies that did help and aid it. And it was great. And different things gave him some different tools to function, ways to communicate, different kind of therapies that gave him ways to segment and plan his day that would give him more around it. Some sensory aspects like, weighted blankets and different kind of clothing that would totally mitigate it. But last year we actually went away to Hawaii. And we bought this boat in Hawaii for other reasons, and it wasn't going to be like we were going to live on it forever. We just bought this boat in Hawaii so we could have a Hawaiian vacation, and why not? And when we came to Hawaii, we were walking around. Actually, we were probably in Hawaii for about 4 or 5 days when all of a sudden it kind of hit me, like there actually hasn't been a lot of the same kind of behaviors. Like Reed and Anon, the two brothers, like they're actually really getting along. Like there's not the same kind of fights and dynamics happening. Like it's easier for me as a parent. I'm noticing myself, I'm not as stressed out and I'm not dealing with as much stuff. But it was actually when we were walking around the docks and Reed, who he's like 8 years old at the time, and has really just pushed away all learning. Like he's just not been interested in learning. It's the last thing on his mind. And we're walking along the docks, and all of a sudden he starts to try to read the names of the boats on the dock.
Oh, wow.
Like, that boat, that's a P, that's an A, that's an N, and that's pan. Is that pancake? And we're like, yeah, that boat's called Pancake. And I almost cried. Like in that moment,
Oh, I bet.
I have never seen him even interested in learning, let alone sitting there and actually like reading without any support requirement or mandation of it. And I just started to actually look around at the environment, and I actually saw he's actually not going around operating at his 9 out of a 10 here. He's actually relaxed. He's an entirely different child. And so I started to look, and I'm like, what are we doing that's so different? Like, why Hawaii? Like, why is being on this boat in Hawaii have me have a different son? Because he was totally functioning differently. And if I looked, it's like every day he's in the ocean in the waves and having like the waves crash up against his body, and he loves it. Like it's his favorite thing to do. So every day he's out in that ocean, boogie boarding getting the waves crashing in on him, and he loves it. And the air, like just, the wind in the air, the sound of the waves continually crashing. There's this like rhythm that's like grounding. It's amazing, this grounding rhythm. And then being on this boat, like we're sleeping on a boat that has us, this gentle rock, this soothing rock all the time. And him just being outdoors and fresh and physical. It's like my life as a parent is entirely different when I'm on the boat with Reed. And it's really because his life is so much easier for him.
Right.
And so, so when we went back, because we were here for 5 weeks or 6 weeks last year, I forget how long it was. It was like, it was a transformed kid. And so it was like when we went back to Victoria, how can we keep this going? Like, how can we keep this alive? So when we went back, we moved back into our house because we were just away on vacation. And, we kept water therapy. We're like, okay, well, obviously the water is super
Right.
important. So we kept that going, but we still noticed this agitation seeping back in. Like, it was just like, he started to go right back up to that 9 out of 10, that like,
Right.
that frustration that he would have, and then we would be in reaction and acting out and like start hitting out again, or like yelling again, or being like just aggressive tendencies.
Right.
And so then we made the decision. We were like, actually, for Reed and for our family, we're living on a boat. And we bought a boat for the summer. And last summer in Victoria, we moved in on the boat. And even though it wasn't Hawaii, for last summer, we were on the boat the entire summer. And Reed, again, like, it just de-escalated right back down. And the calm that he had, the availability that he had to be in conversation. It's even neat because even how he communicates, it's so clear, which he didn't
Right.
have before. Like, he'll actually say, I'm trying to get your attention. Could you please listen? Which is something he would never say before. Back. And like, again, through his younger years, he was nonverbal until he was
Yeah.
probably 5. And so communication isn't the place where he usually goes to. But
Right.
like, when we're on the boat, he has access to that. He'll even say to his brother, what you're doing is annoying me. Please stop. And, for most
Wow.
parents, maybe that they don't get that. But for somebody with characteristics like Reed, that's huge.
Yeah.
Like,
To be able
that
to
is
communicate
huge.
what that feeling in his body is.
Yeah, like, he's
Yeah.
aware of it, and there's space for him to actually say what's there. Like, he can actually get reflective and say it, and he's not just always on this heightened survival place. And so all summer we lived on a boat in Victoria. And yeah, and then for the winter we're like, I'm not living on a boat in the winter in Victoria. So we're back in Hawaii on our
Nice.
boat, and we're wintering on our boat here in Hawaii. And the big reason is for our family. It's for our family to have connection. It's for Reed to thrive and our family to thrive. And it's just super important. And so we've like literally reoriented our life around that. My husband retired this past summer in August so that we could do this. And we work online, and we've just created different ways so that our family can make this happen, because our children are only young ones, and the
Yes.
difference it makes for Reed and his development, like, he gets to have a life like that he wouldn't get to have. And he
No,
gets
for
to also
sure.
know himself differently. Like, he doesn't like knowing himself as somebody who hits
Right.
out and reacts
Yes.
like I didn't actually realize how much that he saw himself that way, and it actually hurt him. And now that there's actually more space for him to verbalize that, he actually says that. Like, he'll even be talking like, I know sometimes I get frustrated and mad,
Yes.
but I actually, want to talk. But
Yes.
now that he has that space, he actually can say that. And so
And
it's been
it's
such
like
a gift.
forming a new identity for him and allowing
Yeah,
him to see himself more in a positive light, which is
yeah,
awesome. And like what I admire most is about it, it's I mean, it's great that you moved to the boat, but the fact that you were aware and open and as a parent ready to look at it and be like, okay, now what is this? What is different? How can we recreate this? And just being
yeah,
aware of it, because I think half the battle these days is just being aware and present enough to catch those things that are like, oh, this is working, or oh, that totally triggered something. And just being in that
yeah,
place of being reflective and looking back at what the day looked like, and not just being like, oh God, I made it. Phew.
yeah. Most days can be survival though, and that's where,
Yeah.
like, I really get it. And that's what last year allowed, that break, that like, and that's where I really recommend to any parents is, if there's some way you can even take any kind of break from the day to day and just do something that allows you to just stop and reflect.
Right.
And
Yeah.
because like, when we get caught up in the day to day, we are surviving like
Yes.
so
That's
much
all
of
there
it,
is.
right? And as a parent with neurodiverse kids, like, it can be, and it's confusing. You don't
Yes.
know, you're trying to do the right thing, and there's different information. And
And
so
it's
it really
coming at
just,
you from right, left, and center. Everyone's
yeah,
got an opinion.
yeah. And so that break last year just allowed us to actually take stock and note what works and what doesn't work. Like, what does agitate, what doesn't agitate, what does bring these reactions, what doesn't, what supports him in a certain way and what doesn't. And and then also too, what am I committed to? Like,
Right.
what do I want most? Because what's important to me is going to be totally different to another parent.
Right.
And what was important to me was just like you know, that youthful sibling connection and family connection was really important to me, that I just that won my day.
Well, and in the end, kids learn through their relationships. So the more relationships that he can bond and learn from, and like the relationship with you and your husband and his siblings are all going to create that many more opportunities for him to learn,
Yeah.
right? And have a positive learning environment rather than a,
Mhm.
and those are the ones he's going to remember, right? Like those ones that evoke those great emotions are like, oh, I rode the boogie board for like 30 seconds. I bet he can probably do it way longer now, but I remember my first boogie board day and I was like, oh, I rode
Ooh,
that thing for 30 seconds.
yeah. Well, just so that he can be intact. I think that's the
Yeah,
most important thing to me. He gets to be intact, and he actually gets to have a place where he gets to thrive and shine and
yeah,
be proud of himself.
no, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
thank you for taking time out of your lovely vacation on your boat
Yes.
to share your
Our life,
story.
it's not a vacation anymore. We get to be on our boat here in Hawaii. I know the kids right now, they're packing up. My husband's taking them off to a hike and snorkeling. And it's like, yeah, Reed gets to go be in some more water this afternoon.
Nice. I love it.
Hmm.
Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for sharing your story.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Kat.